We left off last video getting the structure of our UI in place. In this video, we're going to build this view controller, which is our camera preview layer and capture session and all that stuff. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of AV Foundation stuff going on here. I'm going to go relatively quickly through this, but still give a high-level overview of what's going on. And the reason being is I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole of AV Foundation, how the camera and capture session works. Like, that could be a completely different course, right? There's a lot going on in AV Foundation. So again, I'll give the high level, but I'm not going to dissect every line. And we'll go pretty quickly through the view controller because, again, the point of this lesson is communicating from the view controller to SwiftUI, not cameras and AV Foundation. Okay, so first things first, on your barcode scanner folder, Command N for a new file, Swift file, hit next. We're going to call this scanner VC for view controller. Hit create. Here we go, import foundation. We're also going to need to import AV Foundation. Again, this is anytime you're dealing with the camera, video, like you're going to need AV Foundation. And I suppose we should probably import UIKit, right? I guess we should do that. So anyway, this is going to be a, we'll do final class because we're not going to subclass this. Final class scanner VC, and that is a subclass of UIViewController. There we go. Now, actually, before we dive into actually writing the code for this, let me explain big picture how this communication works with the coordinator, right? We'll keep it super high level and then we'll dive in. So the way UIKit communicates to SwiftUI is basically through delegates and protocols. If you're familiar with that in UIKit, you'll kind of understand what's going on. If that's brand new to you, I'll kind of explain it as we go, but I'm not going to go too deep into it. I have a video here that you can check out. It's one of my most popular videos. It's how a lot of people discover me through that video. Quick disclaimer though, it is one of the first videos like I ever did when I started YouTube. So I think I speak fast even here, but I speak like 3 times as fast in that video. So just a heads up. But if you want to get familiar with delegates and protocols, check out that video. Again, I'll give the overview during this video. But back to how coordinators work. It's still kind of the same pattern, except the coordinator is like this relayer or translator in the middle, right? If you have UIKit will talk to the coordinator will talk to SwiftUI, right? So it's the same concept. We're just putting something in the middle to relay the message. Like big picture, that's all that's going on. So let's actually set that up in this view controller. So the first thing I want to do before even like writing the view controller is set up our protocol here. So protocol scanner VC delegate. That'll be a class protocol. I guess I should put the R in there for protocol. Can't spell. So when you're doing creating a protocol, this is basically just like a list of commands. Like you don't write any implementation here. You just kind of say what functions are going to be a part of this delegate, right? So we want to have one called did find, whoops, I guess it's a function did find. And then what we're going to do is pass in a barcode. And that is going to be a string value. That's what we get from the camera. When it successfully scans a barcode, it returns it as a string. So that's what we're setting up here is, hey, when you find the barcode, send it to your delegate, right? And our delegate is going to be our coordinator. So our coordinator is going to get that barcode. And then our coordinator is going to be like, thanks, view controller. And the coordinator is going to take that barcode and send it up to our SwiftUI view. Okay, that's the big picture. Okay, so on our scanner VC, we're going to need a couple properties here. So let's do let capture session equal AV capture session. And this is us capturing, what's on the camera, right? So again, keeping this super high level. We're also going to need a preview layer. And this is going to be of type AV preview, video preview layer, right? It's going to be optional for now because we set this up when we set up our capture session. So we don't have this value right away. But what the preview layer is kind of exactly what it sounds like. It's what actually is displayed on the screen as you're moving your camera around like you see here on the screen. And then next we'll need a weak var for our delegate. We'll call this the scanner delegate. And that is of type scanner VC delegate. And commonly you'll see this force unwrap like that because we are going to pass this in when we create it. But if we really want to be safe here, we can not force unwrap it and we can make it part of our initializer. So when we create our scanner VC, it's going to be required to take in a delegate. So let's actually create that initializer now. So init. We'll say scanner delegate of type scanner VC delegate. And we'll do self.scanner delegate equals scanner delegate. So basically what we're saying here is when we initialize this, we're going to take in a scanner VC delegate. You'll see we'll do that later. And then once we initialize it, we set our self.scanner delegate, which is this, to scanner delegate. So now we don't need to make that optional because we know we're going to have it when we init. Okay, now you see we're getting Xcode yelling at us, says required initializer, init with coder. This is, you can do this and just leave fatal error in there. And I actually just like to put this on one line. So real quick, this is basically if you ever initialized a scanner VC via storyboard, we're not going to do that, obviously. This is what will get fired off. So you do need to have this in there. And then, oh yeah, I forgot to call the super here in our init. So super.init, and then because we're initializing a view controller, it does take in a nib, nabe, and a bundle. These are just both nil in our case, but you have to have that when initializing a view controller. It's the designated initializer on a view controller. Okay, so what we have set up is our properties here, our initializer. Now the main function we're gonna have on here is gonna be private func setup capture session. So this is where we're going to basically do all the setup to get our camera actually, looking for barcodes and, our preview layer up and running. This is again, this is the heart of the screen here. And in this function, there's a lot of checks to make sure, we even have access to the camera, make sure things are okay. So you're going to see a lot of that, in the beginning. So first of all, let's guard let video capture device equal AV capture device here dot default for in the media type here, right? You can built in dual, whatever. We just want for all the video here. VIDEO, cool. Else, so this is basically saying hey, do we have a device that can capture video? And then else we're just going to return for now, but this is where we would present an error because just like it's important to pass the barcode information, well, if things go wrong, we want to pass the error as well. So we'll have a whole separate video for that later in this section. Okay, next, let's say let video, scroll up here a bit, input, AV capture device input. There you go. And by the way, what you're not seeing is I have all this code off to the side. I don't have all this AV Foundation stuff memorized in the camera. Yeah, I've used the camera in a few different apps. I'm familiar with it, but I just want to set expectations, right? I don't have this memorized. I'm editing out me looking and reading, right? Because people don't memorize all their code. So in case you're wondering, man, how does he know all this stuff? I don't. So again, don't think that you're lesser if you don't have all this memorized. Just a little caveat there. So with video input, we need a do try catch block. So we can just say do, and then we're going to try video input equals, and we'll initialize an AV capture device input. And it takes in a device, and this is the device we just created up here if we had it, right? The video capture device. And then if that doesn't work, we go ahead and catch that here. And this is again where we'll surface an error. But for now, we're just going to return. Again, more error handling later. So now again, more checks. So if capture session.can add input, we want to make sure we actually can get input from the device here. And the input is again, video input that we just created right up here. And then, okay, so if we can add input, let's add the input. So capture, again, just a lot of checks. Not can add input, add input. And the input we want to add is video input. Else, not self, so easy to type in self. Else, and again, return, but we're gonna put an error in here later. Okay, we're almost done with all of our checks here to make sure we even can use the camera. All right, last check here. So say let metadata output. Now this is what actually gets scanned here, equal AV capture metadata output. And then here, one last check. Oops, I got to initialize that, my bad. And then, okay, back to our last check. And this check is similar to if we can add input, we want to check to see if we can add output. So if capture session.can add output, and then the output again is the metadata output we just put up there. If that is true, we're going to add it. So capture session.add output metadata output. Again, AV Foundation is very, very confusing. I'm not going to act like I know it very, very well. I can use it. I've used it before. But if you're not understanding what I'm doing right now, don't worry. In fact, I even debated on just not even doing this video and just giving you the view controller. Hey, just copy and paste this view controller. But I thought some people might want to actually go through this. So again, another caveat, if you're lost right now, don't worry. This is a Swift UI tutorial. This is not an AV Foundation tutorial. So now we want to start adjusting this metadata output. So metadata output dot set meta. We're basically setting the delegate here, right? Set metadata objects delegate, and it's going to be self, and then the queue is going to be the main queue, and that's dispatch queue.main. And we're getting an error because I did not capitalize data in metadata. It took me a minute to find that, what's going on here. And that's not actually the reason why I was getting an error. We're not conforming to the delegate yet here. So let's, just so Xcode stops yelling at me, we'll get a little bit ahead of ourselves here. So extension on scanner VC, and this is us conforming to the delegate here. So we want to conform to AV capture metadata output objects delegate. It's a mouthful, right? But this is what we're just doing here, right? Set metadata objects delegate. Well, we need to conform to that. And then do Command B, it'll yell at us, we're not conforming to the delegate, or not. Build succeeded. I guess they're not required functions here. So we'll come back and fill that in later. So next we want to do metadata output dot metadata object types, right? So now this is an array of basically types of barcodes that we want to scan. So if I do dot, you can see these are all the different types of code, barcodes, and all the different stuff you can scan, right? QR, human body, that's interesting, I guess. But we want EAN8 and .EAN13. And this is just the standard 8-digit barcode or 13-digit barcode you see up on the screen. So that's what we're doing there. We're basically telling the camera, hey, look for these types of barcodes. Okay, and back up a couple lines here, right? We're saying if we can add the output, cool. But if we can't, this again, surface the error. For now, we're just going to return. Okay, so that's our last check to make sure everything's good. So the last thing we need to do here, well, two more things. We need to set up our preview layer based on all the checks we just did so we can actually show the camera. And then we need to input the delegate method here to implement what we want to do when we find the barcode. So here we can finally set our preview layer. So preview layer equals AV capture video preview layer, there it is, right? And you initialize that. You can see it takes in a session, which is an AV capture session, which is what we created here with our capture session. So we want to pass in the capture session that we just set up and did all our checks on, right? So basically, we set up our capture session, make sure everything was good to go. Once it's good to go, now we can set that to our preview layer. Now we can do preview layer. Now, a preview layer isn't optional. I'm going to force and wrap it here, and I'll tell you why here. And we'll do video gravity equals resize aspect fill. Basically what this is saying is whatever view we create, if on the design, right, we have this black square, that's kind of the structure of our view, basically saying fill that view, but keep your aspect ratio is what this is doing. And back to the force unwrapping. Now, again, hotly debated topic. I'll touch on why I'm doing it here. We're literally setting preview layer right here. And on the very next line, we're using it, right? So, you know, there's two camps. I think it's okay to sometimes force unwrap, and this is an example of that situation. There's other people in the camp that are like, never force unwrap. You never know. There's always this, 0.0001% edge case that could happen. They're not wrong. It's fine. I just told you the camp I'm in. If you're in the other camp, cool. Unwrap the optional. No big deal. And then here we add the preview layer to our view. So we do view.layer .add sublayer, kind of like view.add subview, similar concept here. And then the layer we want to add is our preview layer. And again, force unwrap that because we have the value literally right there. Okay, so now we have our preview layer set up with our capture session. The final thing we need to do is actually do capture session dot start running. So this will actually start running the capture session so you can see the preview on the camera. Okay, so that's our AV foundation code. We just set up our capture session with a bunch of checks like, do we even have access to video? Can it do all this stuff? And if all that is good, then we set up our preview layer to show our capture session and basically start running the capture session. Super high level, that's what that code is doing. Again, don't worry if you were lost. AV foundation is trips up a lot of people. Okay, so the last piece of the puzzle is what to do when we actually scan a barcode. And again, remember, our barcode has to be EAN8 or EAN13, right? So when that happens, what do we do? Well, here's where we tell our delegate, which in this case is going to be our coordinator, the barcode that we found. And remember, the coordinator is going to take that information and then pass it to SwiftUI. That's the whole flow here. So the delegate method for that, we'll do func metadata, and you can see it's this big long one here, right? Did output metadata objects. So what we get back here that's key is our metadata objects. This will be the barcodes that we scan here, right? We get an array of it. And then from the connection is our AV capture connection that we set up. Okay, so cool. So what we want is the first object in this array, right? We just want the very first one that it found. So let's set that up first. So let's check to make sure we have it. Guard let object equal metadata objects. Again, this is our array dot first, right? Again, we just want to take the first one. Else. And again, we're going to return here. We'll do the error messages later. I know I'm a broken record. But okay, we want to make sure we have our objects. That is the first one in the array. Now we have to do another check on the object. Now we do guard let machine readable object equal object. And then here's where we have to cast it. And again, I had to look this up. I don't know this off the top of my head, but it needs to be of type AV machine metadata, machine readable, codable. Like it's a mouthful, right? It's basically a machine readable object here. Else, and again, we'll do the error stuff, but for now, just return. Okay, so now we have the machine readable object, but this has a string value attached to it, and that's what we want, right? We're digging through the data to get what we want, and we want this barcode string value that we're gonna get here. Do guard let barcode equal machine readable object dot string value. Okay, so make sure we have a string value. Else, again, return with the error. Okay, and if we have that, we just want to do delegate, right? This is the delegate that we set up, or I'm sorry, scanner delegate dot did find, and then the barcode we found was barcode. Okay, again, that was a lot of checks everywhere. Real quick, hey, do we have a metadata object in our array? Cool, grab that. Is it this machine readable code object? Cool, moving on. Let's take that machine readable object and get the string value of it. Cool, got it. Okay, that string value, let's send it to our delegate, right? So now whoever our delegate is, right now at this moment, nobody's our delegate. We haven't set that up yet. So right now, if we ran this, our scanner VC is just like screaming into the void. Here's my barcode. Here's my barcode. Nobody's listening. That's what we're going to set up in the next video, but that's what we just set up right now. It's just one side of the communication. And here is us, after we did all that setup, finally telling our delegate what we found. So now that we've told our delegate, hey, when we found a barcode, in the next video, we're going to set up the structure for our errors so that we can also tell our delegate, like, hey, we messed up somewhere along the line. Here's what happened.